So what I'd like to do is get started by taking a look at the agenda I have planned for this session to find out just what those 6 dimensions are. Before we review the 6 dimensions, I will start with a brief introduction related to motivation as well as to my own background. But then what we're going to do is take a look at each of the 6 dimensions, and here they are. The first one is authenticity. The second one, transparency. The third one, collaboration. The fourth one, accountability. The fifth one, auspiciousness. And finally, the 6th one, egolessness. Then, once we get to the end of the presentation, we'll have some time for any questions you may have, and hopefully I'll have some answers for you as well, but I will wrap up with a brief conclusion. But that's really the agenda that I have for this webinar today, so let's go ahead and get started with that introduction. As Mike mentioned when he kicked off the webinar today, you all heard I have a background in corporate training, but I've also recently been inducted into the International Martial Arts Hall of Fame. And as a martial artist, I found that I needed to work with a diverse group of people and keep them all motivated to want to continue in their training. And over the past few years of teaching and coaching, I noticed that there were certain traits that seemed to keep people coming back to my martial arts class. And that's really when I first started developing the idea for these 6 dimensions. And interestingly enough, I came to realize that a lot of these dimensions could also be true in the business world, especially on project teams. Now, what I needed to do was figure out how would I transfer those dimensions from the martial arts world to the business world, or from the world of the martial arts uniform to the suit and tie world. And oddly enough, there are a lot of similarities. So today, I'd like to share those similarities with you. Now, admittedly, we would like all of our project team members to have these traits. However, for this particular webinar, I'd like to focus on what you, the project manager, can do to ensure your teams have these traits. So why don't we go ahead and get started with that first dimension. As I mentioned, the first dimension is authenticity. But what does that word really mean? What do you think it means? I'd like you to just take a few seconds and really think about what the word authenticity means to you. When I was preparing this presentation, I decided to think about exactly what this word means. And I have a list of a few synonyms that I came up with. Here are some of the things that authenticity means to me. It means that you're genuine, or you're real, you're a trustworthy person, you're reliable, you're unquestionable, and you're true. You're true at your job. So that gives you kind of an overview of what the word authenticity means to me and what that dimension really means, the things that you need to represent to keep your project teams motivated. But now that we have a sense of what it means, let's consider its use in context. Here I have a quote that is from Meredith Monk, who is a composer, a singer, and a director, and she once said, "That inner voice has both gentleness and clarity. So to get to authenticity, you really keep going down to the bone, to the honesty and the inevitability of something." So how about if we all just get down to the bone of authenticity from a project team motivation perspective? What is it that we can do as project managers to ensure that authenticity is a motivational dimension on our project teams? Well, I would say that we have to have heart. Now, personally, I try not to be too touchy-feely in my presentations, so we're going to look at having apart from another perspective. This is a mnemonic device that you can all use to ensure that authenticity is part of your project team. First, I would say to have passion. If you really want to have an authentic team, it has to start with you. You need to be passionate about the project. And don't just make this lip service either. Be truly passionate about the work that you're doing. Next, you want to exhibit model behaviors. And this is just another way of saying you need to walk the talk with your team. Be certain that you are acting the same way that you want your team to act. First of all, that's going to ensure your authenticity, and others will follow your example. For the letter A, I'm going to say aim for compassion. You know, it doesn't matter what team you work on. We're all human, and we all need to have some basic compassion shown toward us. Remember, as humans, we all make mistakes. As authentic project managers, we need to show some compassion when this happens. Next, relate to others. In the martial arts world, when you get to a certain level in your training, it can be a challenge to remember all of the things that you had to go through as a beginner. And the same can be true of our project teams. You know, when we become project managers, it's important that we not forget what it was like to be a project team member. If we can continue to relate to our project team members, it will greatly contribute to being an authentic project manager. And finally, I would say teach with consistency. And this final point really is the complement to the previous point. In the martial arts world, I have to be consistent in my teaching. Everyone deserves the same opportunity to learn. And the same is true on your project teams. You will need to teach them, and they all deserve the same level of consistency if you truly want to have an authentic team. So, there you have it. You've got to have heart if you want to have a team that exhibits authenticity. But I still have one more point that I'd like to make about authenticity. For each of these 6 dimensions that we're going to review today, I want to give it to you straight. Essentially, I want to give you one line of advice that will help you to motivate your teams. So basically, I want to take each dimension and boil it down to one single way in which you can use it to motivate your teams. And here is your first piece of advice. Give a damn. And that's right. I said it. I made the moderately controversial decision to use a curse word in my presentation, but I did so because I feel as though it would first allow me to be authentic to all of you. And second, I truly believe that when you give a damn about your projects, it will shine through to your project team and keep them motivated. So we've only covered one of the 6 dimensions so far, but with that one dimension, you can already inspire motivation. Even so, let's go ahead and have a look at the next one. The next dimension is transparency. And once again, I want you to think about what that word actually means to you. Think of some synonyms for the word transparency. And I'm going to give you just a moment to think about what that actually means to you. Again, when I was putting this presentation together, I tried to think of all the different things that the word transparency means to me. And here are some of the synonyms that I came up with. It means you need to be clear and open. You want to be honest with your team. You want to be sincere. Also, you want to be obvious and you want to be real.